Yeah, big news out of Belmore today. Let's bring the journos straight in. Buzz and Hoops. Now, Gus has told us that Trent has stood down. He was the one that quit today as coach of the Canterbury Bulldogs. Do we believe that, or can you shed some light on what has actually gone on today at the Bulldogs?
Oh, look, it's the biggest story of the season, no doubt, Braith. And I think the drums started beating after the Bulldogs were rolled by Canberra in round 9 down in the national capital. And behind the scenes, from the way I understand it, Baz was basically told either walk or you're going to be knifed. Mm-hmm. Now, it's being framed as the board is behind this push, but I think a lot of people will say it's hard to believe how someone with the influence and clout that Gus carries in the game wasn't involved in that decision. But to be really clear about it, Trent Barrett basically had a gun pointed at him and was told, you either walk or it's going to get ugly.
Yeah, look, the fact is it's a rookie board, okay? Four of the board are well experienced, the other 4 are pretty new to the job. But there was no support on the board. There was no support from Phil Gould, I understand. And basically it was a unanimous decision. And to Hoops' point, it was jump or be pushed. And Trent Barrett had no choice. Look, he was I said weeks ago, once Phil Gould got involved, it was dead man walking.
Well, you said it. We've been talking about this for 3 or 4 weeks. You called it after Gus went into the training session and took it over from Trent Barrett. Yeah. You said the writing was on the wall.
And he's had no support since then.
But
what they've been doing since then is working out, I think, the exit plan.
Well, he said there was an agenda, pretty much. We had an agenda against the Bulldogs, when really we're just telling some home truths.
Look, Bray, after he got involved, they went out, they beat the Roosters, which basically, rather than help Trent Barrett, it reinforced the opinion of Trent Barrett that he wasn't the man able to do it. Phil Gould, in a couple of days, one training session, one motivational rev up, turned him around for a week, okay? That reinforced to the board that he wasn't the right guy for the job. Now, since then, there's been the speculation. I know, but there's been the speculation that it was a matter of time. Now, if you were on the run agendas, we would have been running that the past few weeks. We sat here on our hands saying nothing because of that. Because we needed, there was nothing had actually happened, so otherwise it's just going to sound like us heaping more pressure on Trent Barrett.
Well, there's no satisfaction out of Trent losing his job.
There's
no satisfaction here at all.
It's a really sad day for him, and because he's going to struggle from here on to get another head coaching job, because his record's not great. What is it? 5 wins from 34 games. Look, there's no question whatsoever in my mind that this was Gus's decision. But the board have helped him out and taken some pressure off him because Gus is so close to Wayne Beavers, who manages Trent Barrett and manages Gus. So it was a sort of escape valve for Gus.
And also, look, Gus has gone back on his word from saying 2 weeks ago he'll be here long after him.
Gus went back on his word when he signed Anthony Griffin for 3 years and sacked him 10 weeks later.
But that has surprised a lot of people over the last 24, 48 hours that it was only a fortnight ago, Gus said on a rival network, Trent Barrett will be the head coach at Belmore long after I'm gone. Here we are 10 days later. And
yeah,
Baz
look, you don't walk away like Baz does. Baz, everyone knows him. Everyone knows that he would have stuck it out. He's not a quitter.
Particularly with more players coming next year and lots of kick out money.
Yeah, everyone knows Baz would have stuck it out. Everyone knows Baz isn't a quitter. But what's happened here is Gus has said to him, mate, it can't go on. We need you to resign. They then give him a very, very handsome severance pay. They will put confidentiality agreements into it. So what that means is Baz won't be doing any revealing interviews about what really happened behind closed doors, about how he really felt when Gus gave the players a spray, took his whistle off him and conducted a session 2 weeks ago. And in a way, that's smart what the Bulldogs have done. They don't need any more turmoil. They need this to go as smooth as possible, but do not fall for any suggestion that Trent Barrett walked out on his own.
So the Knights loss, that was the final straw. It just got moving. Was there any plans before that, or was it just as soon as that, because it was a poor loss, right?
The way that I've heard it, Braith, was that they went down, they had that great win over the Roosters and it made headlines because Gus had gone in, given them a big bake, and then they'd got the result against the premiership heavyweight. Then internally, there was a view, certainly amongst the board and other power brokers at the joint, that, okay, we can build some momentum here. We've got Canberra, who are without Jack Whiten in the national capital, and then the following week we've got another opportunity against Newcastle, who are also down the bottom of the ladder, at Magic Round. Now, when they lost to the Raiders, that's where the walls really started to close in on Trent Barrett. And the way that I've heard it is that that was when he was first approached and told that it was the board who were turning on him and that they believed that they needed to be winning more games than they were. And so as a result, the choice was either walk or you're going to get knifed.
If the board did have any involvement, I think it's a disgrace. I think they're a blazer brigade that were more concerned about keeping their own jobs at upcoming elections. John Curry was briefing journalists all over town yesterday, their chairman, that he's had angry members ring. And I don't like that. If that is the case, I still say it was Gus, but if that's the case, that they're more concerned about protecting their own jobs by moving Barrett on, I think it's really bad.
Well, in the end though, Buzz, they would have had the power to say to Phil Gould, we're not sacking him.
I don't agree with that, Kenty.
Well, they're the board. They do. They're the board.
Look, I think
They're the board, Buzz.
the problem Gus
There's no
had...
doubt Gould's got power there, but they are the board, but they don't have the guts to stand up to Gould.
No, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's why I'm saying it's Gus's. Of course they would have had the power, but no one has had the courage to stand up to Phil Gould until his last year at Penrith, when Dave O'Neill and Brian Fletcher got together and said, your time's up. We're sick of you getting rid of coaches. We're sick of paying out Anthony Griffin $2 million. And they stood up to him. This Canterbury board, I don't think had a huge involvement in what happened. As I said earlier, I think it was Gus.
Well, things had to change, and they've got to change quick moving forward. Trent Barrett was out of answers after the Dogs lost to the Knights on Friday night. Take a listen.
They're courageous and they try hard, but I said before, that's not enough to win you the game in the NRL. You got to control the footy. Until we learn we cut out those individual errors that we're making and build pressure and come up with the right kick at the right time. Well, we're going to be... I sound like a broken record with the press conferences. It's the same every week. And it's not good enough.
Hoops, you've got some news for us on how Trent Barrett actually found out about what was about to happen. He's in Port Macquarie, is that right?
Yeah, look, I spoke to a couple of blokes who are up at the Settlers Inn at Port Macquarie yesterday, and Baz was actually up on the north coast of New South Wales to attend Shane Millard's old man's funeral today. And so they were at the pub yesterday, and the news came up, flashed up on Fox League, that it was a breaking story that the Canterbury board had called an emergency general meeting, and in all likelihood, Baz had coached his last game. Now, trying to speak to other people around Canterbury Bankstown today, I think that the Drums had been beating for around a week now. Yep. But still, that would have been quite unnerving for Baz to be standing there having a scooter at the pub.
And it squashes the I'm going to quit too, if he didn't even know that he was going to get the chop.
He had been in discussion. Look, I've been told he had several discussions with Gould in Brisbane after the loss over Magic Round before he returned to Port Macquarie where he was today. So there've been certainly the discussions have been made. Now I don't know the nature of those discussions as far as whether it was a discussion about, mate, you need to go, you need to sort that out, or whether it's, mate, you are going, we'll sort out what it looks like when you do go. Like it can take any form. We'll get details at some point.
Well, that's your point. I don't think you'll get Baz talking about it. It'll put his money under threat.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was only 2 weeks ago Phil Gould was backing Trent Barrett to be the long-term coach at Canterbury.
Well, I do know that Trent Barrett coached the team this week. Trent Barrett will be the coach of the Bulldogs long after I'm gone, long after I'm gone.
Mate, look,
He's going to be a long-term coach for the club.
I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
And all the stuff that was misrepresented and misspoken about, and most of it so childish and agenda-driven and personal grievances, I've been dealing with pretty much for the most part of my career. And it doesn't affect me, and I don't worry about it, and I laugh in their face with it.
Well, you're not laughing now, Phil, after saying that only a couple of weeks ago, Pinocchio there, saying that his job was safe, Phil Gould, and he's going to be long after Gus, and mate, he's telling lies because Barrett's gone and he's still there.
That's my point. People think there's some sort of agenda going on with Gus, but I really like the fact that this show is one of the few media outlets in town that actually hold the guy accountable. And it's really, really important to call him out on these, fibs he's been telling. The same thing happened at Penrith, and it's not right.
It's for the best interest of the club too. When we're on here talking about this, and we're saying what's going to happen next because we've seen it before, and we're hearing what we hear around the game, it's the best interest of the club. It's the best interest of the fans, the supporters, the players. We're looking at the future of the Bulldogs, which is a powerhouse that is not a powerhouse anymore for a number of reasons. The general manager has got some big decisions to make now, and he's got to make the right ones.
Well, speaking of big decisions, Braith, this is going to have seismic ramifications in terms of the Bulldogs roster, because as much as Trent Barrett hadn't got on-field wins, Matt Burton signed to play under him, Josh Adokar, Brent Naden, Tavita Pangai. Next year it's Kikau and it's Reid Marnie. So there's already mail that for a player like Tavita Pangai, he might look to try and get out and go and join Wayne Bennett at the Dolphins.
I want to talk to you too. Like I said, we've got players that have come into the club, and we've had the likes of Paul Vaughan come into the club, and Matt Duffy and Tavita Pangai. And you talk about Bulldogs DNA. And as a player who won a premiership at the Bulldogs, I want you to tell us what are the Bulldogs, what is their DNA, and why do they not have it, and how do they get it?
Well, that's it. I think they've let themselves down with their recruitment. When you're a Bulldogs player and you stepped into Belmore, you knew what the expectations were of you as a player, on the field and off the field. Tough, resilient, they wanted to break you. The second you got in there, you were broken. And if you didn't turn up the next day, that's a good thing because you weren't a Bulldog. You got the last 5 minutes of your game, you're as strong as your first 5 minutes. In every game we played back in that era, and we followed off the back of Kevin Moore and Folksy, and we had Terry Lamb, and we had Billy Johnson and Gary Carden who'd flog the you-know-what out of us because they'd build that character. That Bulldogs trait, that dogs of war. When you were so proud to be a Bulldog, you wouldn't let your mate next to you down. That's gone. The DNA is gone. This is why this decision had to be made. But this is why they've got to get someone in there who knows that, who's lived inside those four walls. And Gus knows it, but Gus does know it.
Wasn't Gould?
He does, and
yes.
I think he can find it, and I hope he does. But Gus
talk
understands
about their bad recruitment. They signed Pangai Jr., Vaughan, Burton, Adokar, Duffy out the back, Naden.
Yeah. No. When they
that's
signed
not bad.
When they signed Pangai, it was like ill-disciplined player and could possibly a liability. And do you think that he's played like that on the field?
No, he hasn't. He hasn't. But that comes back.
He has played like that.
Yeah, but that comes back, as you say, to the DNA.
It does.
And it comes back to Paul Vaughan marching out and being a mug to the media like he did. The culture there is shocking when players are behaving in that manner. It really is.
The other part to it, to your point, is they're among the unfittest teams in the competition. There's no...
which is very un-Bulldog.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're not
considered staples of that joint dating back to when Gus won a comp there.
I was talking to someone there today, and they were telling me, talking about the grand final teams in the 90s and how essentially they weren't the most talented teams at the time, but because they were tough and fit and had, to your point, had this belief that come the end of the game, they would begin to run over teams. And they even had this under Des, to be fair. Yeah. They were tough, fit, came over the teams at the end of the game, but that's all gone now.
But maybe Gus seen that too, but maybe Gus seen that Trent wasn't getting that out of the players and he wasn't the right man for that.
It's not Trent's job, the fitness. It's their high performance.
He's the head coach. He hires the high performance. That's his man. He's been with him the whole time. He was with him.
Dan Ferris, is it?
Yeah, he was with him at Manly and he brought him to the Bulldogs. That is Trent's decision. He made that call.
Yeah, but he doesn't...
He was also his decision. He wanted to get Flanagan there and he said he was the answer with Burton in the halves. That was Trent's decision. All these people saying fitness
Trent
is not
wasn't allowed to pick Kyle Flanagan.
Well, that's what we've been told.
That was cool. Gould admitted that.